Ross Dellinger, he's always got the scoop, but Big 12 made it official today. They have hired Brett Yormark to be the new Big 12 conference commissioner. And this guy, he was just the COO of Jay-Z's Rock Nation. And this guy's got a very interesting resume. No college athletics experience to speak of, but there's no doubt when you look at the resume, he's an impressive guy. Got his start. I listened to a couple podcasts where they interviewed him. Got his start selling tickets for the Nets way back in the day, sold television packages for teams, sold all kinds of things for the Detroit Pistons when they built their own arena, worked for NASCAR where he landed them some massive sponsorship deals, did that for 6 years, helped grow the NASCAR brand. He was the CEO of the Nets for 14 years. He helped facilitate their move from New Jersey to Brooklyn, was an integral part of the building of the Barclays Center, and then managed that arena. I mean, tons of licensing experience. I mean, he may not have any college athletics experience, Ted, but you see quotes from people like Adam Silver and the CEO of Fox talking about how good this guy is at what he does. And I don't know, to me, seems like a really good kind of out of the box hire for the Big 12. They need some new creativity moving forward without OU in Texas. And I feel like Brett Yormark seems like a pretty damn good guy for the job.
Totally agree. Totally agree. This is, it's an out of the box hire, but it's really not. What's the hires previously, and I'm not just talking about the Big 12, I'm talking about typically, your conference commissioner stuff until the Pac-12s was a little bit different. But I mean, the most important aspect of what your conference commissioner can do is make you money, right? We'll deal with the sports stuff. Like he's got people to help him deal with that. I mean, that part of it is not all that difficult. The difficult part is positioning yourself in a very, very competitive market for dollar bills, whether it's networks, whether it's sponsorships, whether it's moving to a different, media type of landscape. That is what is most important, dollar bills. And the Big 12 losing OU and Texas, the cash cows, they're going to have to figure out a way to get competitive and get back to making big bucks, because I'll tell you what, man, it's tough to go from high on the hog, getting that guaranteed check every single year coming in, and then your cash cows leave, and all of a sudden your budget, I don't know how much it's going to go down, but substantially. And like, how do you operate off all the things that you've built, and you got to manage, and you got upkeep, and you got a staff, and now all of a sudden you're getting, I don't know, 10, 12, $15 million less a year. We got to find a way to make up some revenue. And I think just looking at his experience and what he's done, looks like the perfect hire. Like, it looks like the most reasonable hire you could make. It doesn't look like a shot in the dark to try and get something to work. It looks like the best way you could possibly position yourself moving forward, with a guy that has all of the right connections to all of the big marketers, the big companies that advertise in sports. It looks like a home run to me.
Yeah. And the most important thing for him is going to be the Big 12's new media rights deal, right? That's where you're bringing in just huge revenue for the members of the conference. And it was interesting. Someone told me on Tuesday that Brett Yormark might be the best salesman in America. And that they're going to need it, right? Because like you said, you're losing OU in Texas. And while I think the new Big 12 is going to be a ton of fun to watch. It's going to be extremely competitive with the 4 new members coming in. There are people that say with OU and Texas moving out that the conference loses around like 50% of its value.
Yeah.
In the eyes of the television partners. It's up to Yormark to change that perception of the league. And I'm really interested to see how much money he can get the Big 12 in that negotiation. But it seems like they've hired a guy that's been a part of a lot of these negotiations. Right? Remember, he was, before he took over as COO, he was doing a lot of Rock Nations like branding and licensing stuff across the world, not just in America. So this is a guy that supposedly has just an unbelievable Rolodex. And do people still use this? It's just your phone, right? A Rolodex isn't a thing anymore.
No,
No, but we still say it. So he knows a lot of people. He knows the right people.
He's got a hell of a sell CRM.
But I will say this. I'll be at Big 12 Media Days covering that for SiriusXM. And I know that I think he doesn't officially start until August 1st. I really hope Brett Yormark's going to be there at Big 12 Media Days, because not only do I want to talk to him about how his strategy when it comes to selling the Big 12 once OU and Texas leave, I want to talk to him about that 1 year, maybe 2 years of a 14-team Big 12 that's going to matter a whole lot to us, right? With OU still being in there. So I want to pick his brain on what that looks like, how that's going to function, his thoughts on that situation. And of course, maybe I'll subtly work in an early exit possibility question for OU there, just to see how he reacts,
It's fascinating, man. I think with these new rights deals coming up, I think you are potentially about to see for the first time a change in a way people consume their sports. If I was him, I would go to my Rolodex and see who I've got at Amazon or at any of the big streaming places, because that's where it's going. Traditional television as we know it is dead. It's just a matter of when does the life support finally disconnected, right? That's what's going to happen. And if you can go to Amazon and offer up your stuff to someone like that, and you're a great salesman, you can make it make sense, then I think that's the next leap. And there'll be a conference that does it first. I don't know who it's going to be. ESPN Plus has their stuff, and that's fine and dandy. But as we know, we've already seen Amazon start to dip the toe, and the amount that they're paying for one game a week on NFL is like absurd. So in their eyes, carrying an entire segment of the country, right down the middle, the fan bases and the access that you have to those folks, then I'm sure a salesman could make that work if you can tie all the details in and how to package it.
Yeah, not only Amazon, but I don't know if you've seen a lot of this, but Apple, they're in Major League Baseball now.
Yep.
I mean, they're in the game, and you look at how much money Apple could spend, right? They got so much. You look at their market cap, like
it's like we have to find a way to spend money. Like, what are we doing? We've got to spend some of this revenue.
Yeah. And you look at what the new Big 12 is going to look like. 3 time zones. Maybe you brand as like, hey, the conference of competition. Maybe you play 10 conference games, and that's a way to separate yourself. You've got BYU, which I think people underestimate the reach of BYU. It's not just in the United States. Like the Mormons across the world support BYU football. And if they could watch it on a streaming service, I'd be interested to see what those numbers would look like.
Yeah.
So I think that, there's a lot of doom and gloom right now surrounding the future of the Big 12, but the hire of Brett Yormark, it's got me excited for the league. And I know some OU fans may say, who cares? Who cares about the Big 12 once the Sooners are out? And the answer is, man, I do. And it's because even when OU's in the SEC, like you and I, Ted, will always be Big 12 guys. Like our Big 12 championship rings aren't all of a sudden going to say SEC champions on them.
That's right.
Like we played in the Big 12 when people are talking about, some of the best players in the history of the Big 12, your name is going to come up. When they're talking about the great players in the history of the SEC, your name's not going to come up because you didn't play in the SEC, man.
That's right.
So if some people say, who cares? Maybe some people would say, let the Big 12 crash and burn. I'm not one of those people. I want to see that conference succeed. I want to see that conference flourish. Now, it's not going to bring in the money, not even close to what the Big 10 and the SEC are going to be bringing in. But I damn well hope that they bring in more money than the Pac-12 and more money than the ACC. Like, that's what I want for the Big 12. I want them to remain kind of in that third spot in the Power 5. There's a lot of people that are like, oh, it may not even be Power 5. I talked to Heather Dinich on my radio show the other day. She said it's just going to be a beefed up American Athletic Conference. And I was like, oh my God, like, that's not what I want. I want the Big 12 to thrive once OU moves on.
A beefed up American Athletic.
It was stupid.
That's not, it's just not true. It is interesting to see like what the perception for recruits is going to be of the conference when OU and Texas leave. Like that's the biggest thing. But as far as the football, I mean, ask anyone that played Baylor last year if it was just a beefed up American Athletic Conference. Like Baylor is a legit football team, and they're going to continue to be. Oklahoma State is super competitive. Now they have their ups and downs, but like on their cycle, whenever they get good experience that's back, they're extremely competitive. The real difference is just the top, right? The SEC's got some good teams at the top. Middle tier, the Big 12 has been pretty competitive with the majority of the teams in the SEC. Not the Alabamas, not the Georgias, not the LSUs whenever they put their season together, but everyone else, they're kind of, they're about on the same level as your mid to upper tier Big 12 teams for the most part. But, I think that perception with the recruits is going to be critical. And, if they can continue to put a conference champ into the playoff, that's going to be the biggest like saving grace for them.
Yeah. And I think if someone kind of needs to establish themselves as the new king of the Big 12.
Yeah.
Because that's been OU for so long. And, maybe it's Luke Fickell in Cincinnati with how they got things rolling. Hell, UCF, Houston, those places, those are both located in areas that have a ton of talent surrounding those schools. When you think about it from a recruiting perspective, and can them being in a Power 5 league, can that really give them a boost when it comes to recruiting? BYU, they just got a bunch of grown ass men, man. So it'll be interesting. I think it's going to be fun. But yeah, Brett Yormark, new Big 12 commissioner. Okay, one